Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the second in our series of Powered by Niagara Framework content spotlights. This time we're joined from across the world with Conserve It from Australia and Linkspring from the US as well. So today's session will start with, I'll give you a brief introduction into Niagara Portability and being powered by the Niagara framework. Then I'm going to pass over to Conservit, who will run you through what they've done with Niagara and how their devices fit into their solutions. And then we'll pass on to Linkspring, and they'll take you through what they've achieved with Niagara over the many years. You'll see these guys here that are going to be joining me today. They are all very active in the Haystack community as well as the Niagara community. So you should, the very little introduction should be required. However, just a quick note of housekeeping. I will say that, as I say, I'll do introduction, then we'll have two presentations. During this time, if you have any questions, then please feel free to drop them into the Q&A section in the Zoom meeting. And as we go, we will come to questions and answers at the end. Some may be answered in the chat as we go. Some we might hold back and answer live, and some we might follow up afterwards, depending on how many questions we have. If you've joined with a valid email address, then of course we'll be able to contact you. If not, then please reach out to us. And as far as data protection is concerned, if there's anything specific to either Conservit or Linkspring devices that come up in those, we will share your contact details with those two organizations. So without further ado, if I go on and talk to you about what we call Niagara Portability. Now, this is a phrase that you hear a lot of, and if you'd been lucky enough to attend the London Forum back in May this year, you would have heard portability being talked about by in many of the different presentations by the Tridium leadership. So for example, here's one of the slides where they're talking about the 4 target areas that we have for our community, and they are growing the Niagara community, driving demand for Niagara, educating the market on what Niagara is, what it does, and what Niagara devices do. And key to that is also portability. And the part of this is due to the fact that portability also, it provides different devices other than just a Jace or an Edge 10, provides Niagara natively on different devices that can provide more holistic solutions to smart building, energy management, equipment control, and smarter applications that you can create using the Niagara data. So when we talk about portability, sometimes you will see that these also have different titles to what we're talking about. Sometimes we talk about powered by Niagara Framework. Now that's the logo that is available only to devices that have been reviewed and authorized and approved by Tridium as having Niagara on board. So also you might hear it being talked about as platform independent Niagara, and you'll see that some of the different SKUs and descriptions and agreements we have talk about platform independent Niagara. Now that phrase has technically been around since our AX days, because this is actually a program that has been in place for many years, and some of our partners have been working with us since the AX day. Now, bear in mind, we consider this to be a very special relationship that we have with these partners, the PIN OEMs or the portability partners that we work with. So when I talk about portability devices, here are just some of the examples. You will have seen in our last spotlight, we talked with Tyrrell and Isma Controlli, and today we are talking with Conservit and Linkspring, and these are some of their devices. So what is portability? Portability is required if you want to install Niagara on a platform that keenly has different hardware and I/O requirements, and therefore native code is required to actually interact between the Java and the Niagara layer and the hardware. And if you were interested in doing this, what is the process? So it all starts with an OEM who is either a manufacturer of devices or who procures devices to their specification. Considering if they have the resources to do this embedded hardware, embedded software kind of development, then first of all, we need to make sure that there's a relationship set up between Tridium and the OEM. Then we need the Tridium sales or business development champion to put together a business case as to why Tridium should put the efforts in to do this. Bearing in mind, whilst there is an administration fee that we charge for licensing Niagara onto third-party devices, there is a lot of work that the Tridium team and engineers and everyone puts into ensuring that we support the relationship with our portability partners. So we don't just accept the first and every single offer that people says that, yeah, we want to put it on our device. We really have to look at the business case and make sure that it's really a viable product that we want to work with. So when that business case has been approved, then we move on to the PIN addendum. As I talked about, the PIN stands for Platform Independent Niagara Addendum to your reseller agreement. This gets signed, and this gets you access to Niagara Portability Software Development Kit, known as the NPSDK, and also gets you access to a higher level of OEM technical support, which is focused on supporting the embedded software side of things. Then you can port Niagara onto your device. And whilst that's happening, you need to work with us commercially to set up your SKUs so that you can sell your device and the licenses for Niagara on your devices. So we get that all set up in Niagara licensing. And then when you've got your work porting your Niagara onto your device completed, we have those sent in to be reviewed by our technical support team. And when that's all approved, then you can go ahead and start making those sales and supporting your customers. So I did mention the NPSDK, the Niagara Portability Software Development Kit. And so that is an HTML interactive document pack that we provide you with. It contains everything that you need to be able to do the Niagara port. So it talks you through, as you can see, getting started, what it is, what you need, what are all your requirements, hardware, software, what you need to manage. It provides sections of code. It's got all the tools. It's got test harnesses so that you can actually test your deployment to make sure it's running correctly and it's secure. So it's got everything you should need in that pack to get you started and to get you through this process. And I've talked about a little bit about this NPSDK. What you get in your NPSDK is the bit that's marked in orange, and this is the bit that helps you to connect your Niagara framework into the native platform code, into the hardware, into the operating system for your device. Notice portability does have a certain amount of responsibility you're taking on, because obviously this is a comparison to how Niagara is deployed on a JACE, on a supervisor, or on a portability device. And you'll see with a JACE, yes, Tridium supplies everything other than the user applications that our OEMs and SIs develop. With a supervisor, then yes, the PC hardware and the operating system is supplied by third parties, but then Tridium supplies the actual the full Niagara framework, including the native platform code that allows it to work on PCs and on Linux. Whereas when it comes to portability, you have to arrange for the Java virtual machine licensing, the operating system that you need for your hardware, and do all of that native platform code. So there's a certain amount of respect that I certainly have for each one of our partners who has this special skill set to be able to do this. Now, you would have heard recently a bit about Niagara containerization as well, and this is something that's being released with Niagara 4.13, and we're working with some partners right now in some early adopters and pilot schemes for this. Now, I think people are thinking of containerization as being a quick and easy version of portability. It's aimed primarily for people who want to have connected devices. So for OEMs managing connected devices, such as routers or hubs, and those that use a container management system, then they can remotely deploy or swiftly deploy containers and more quickly and easily manage remote updating of the Niagara. But this is purely for Niagara that could be running in a Docker container in a Docker environment on a device that is connected. Bear in mind that these devices won't have Workbench built in. That's not necessarily a problem. And these devices don't work with field buses effectively. These are devices where the Niagara is sitting in a containerized environment that is oblivious to what hardware it's actually on or connected into. But there are certainly use cases for this. And if you caught our Tridium talk from a couple of weeks back on containerized Niagara, that has a lot more information on this. So if you want to dig more into Niagara containerization, by all means, catch up with that recording. But briefly, it's Niagara framework supplied in a Docker container. It's got support for AMD and ARM, both 64-bit architecture. Partner OEMs can add their own applications as required and wrap that up into a new container. And then when that's commissioned, it will contact the Tridium Niagara licensing entitlement server to authorize the install, deploy the license, and stay activated. And because of this remote and live and active method of deployment and connection, then Containerized Niagara is being launched as a subscription-only service from 4.13. So I won't dwell on containerization anymore. I will want to move straight on to our first company that we are going to be presenting with today, and that is Conservit. So if you'd like to unmute yourselves, Chirayu and Richard, let's go ahead with this.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. My name is Chirayu Shah. I'm the Vice President of Operations. I look after sales, product delivery support, and also the day-to-day business operations. I also have my colleague, Richard McElhinney here, who is the VP of technology, and he looks after all the product development for us as well. So I will start with an introduction into who the business is, what we do, our relationship with Tridium, and I'll also introduce to you our Niagara Portability controller, which is called the CI Edge X1. And then Richard will talk about the development and all the applications that this allows us to build afterwards. So yeah, thanks Jacqueline for moving on to the slides. So as I was saying before, we are a products and a technologies business. We are not a service company, so we do not do projects, but we sell to system integrators, OEMs, and contractors. And we mainly either distribute controls and automation systems, Niagara and Tridium being at the front of everything we do. And we also develop a lot of applications and technologies for the smart buildings. We do have a lot of experience in HVAC and energy optimization, as well as equipment control. And we also work with a lot of different hardware And then we use Niagara and other software applications to go to market with our solutions. Thanks, Jacqueline. Can we move on to the next slide, please? We have been around a long time, and we are very well recognized, and we have won awards internationally, and not just in Australia. I just wanted to take this moment to just let everyone know who may not be aware of who we are. So we are based in Australia, as Jacqueline said initially, but we have been an active part of the Niagara community for over 15 years. And since Tridium have started the global partnership program, we have been rated as a Tridium Platinum OEM for the second year running. So thank you very much to Tridium for the acknowledgement as well. Yep. Next, Jacqueline, please. So yeah, as I said before, we have been Niagara partners for a long time. We started working with Tridium ever since Conservit was founded back in 2008. We started on as a distributor for the Vicon brand in Australia. We are the only Vicon distributor in Australia, and we are one of the largest in our region, which is Southeast Asia. We are also a premier developer for the Niagara framework, and we have been doing active development since 2009. And we have also been a portability partner since 2015. Yep, thanks, Jacqueline. So I think on the left-hand side is all the Conservit products that we use for all our Niagara applications. And the stuff on the right is all the Vicon products, which I'm sure everyone here is aware of, the JS, the H10, the supervisors, and the Vicon DDC products. But on the left-hand side is the CI Edge X1 and the Conservit range of IOs. And this is what we bring to the market. And like this is what we have developed as a portability kit product. And we use for our products and applications, but it can also be used as a generically programmable Niagara controller. It is the same Niagara framework that you see in a JS. So for all intents and purposes, you just use it like a standard controller, just with some other extra features. Yep, thanks, Jacqueline. So this slide talks a little bit more about what CI Edge X1 is. This is our second Niagara portability controller that we have been working on. It is a very strong and powerful controller, which can be used for all generic Niagara applications, or as my colleague Richard will talk to you during his slides, this also enables us to do a lot of very complex applications. CI Edge X1 runs on the Linux OS. It is a Cortex A53 processor. It is a quad-core controller, so that does allow us to do a lot of advanced things. And we make this available with either an 8 GB or a 32 GB onboard memory. Like a standard controller, it has got 2 Ethernet ports and 2 onboard RS-485 ports. We also have an expansion module, which we call the CIX485, which can be connected on the 2 RJ12 ports on the top of the controller, which allows you to extend 4 more serial ports. So you can have in total 6 serial ports or RS-485 ports where you need. And this really comes in handy when you are connecting to legacy BMSs or like legacy systems where you do need multiple trunks of the RS-485 networks. And using the standard IP or the 485 ports, you can always extend the IO range by using any standard BACnet or Modbus compatible IOs. And we also provide our own range of IOs, which come with our CIX IO Niagara modules, which allow you to configure them very, very easily through the Niagara interface. Being a standard Niagara portability device, it comes with all the licensing options as well as all the standard protocols. We are also working on having LoRa connectivity for this in the future. So I think a lot of you might be interested in the wireless comms coming forward. And yeah, moving on to the licensing options. Being a portability partner, we are actually able to provide this both as a points-only device or a device and points option, which I think like in the different markets, different licensing versions are used, and we are able to use both for our customers. We also provide a 200-point CI Spark Plug V driver whenever you purchase a CI Ajax1 device. And my colleague Richard will talk more about the Spark Plug V and how it can be used. Yep, thanks, Jacqueline. On to the next slide, please. This is just to show you that the CI Ajax1 is a very robust and a very generic Niagara controller, and it can be used in all applications, small or big. It can be used as a single equipment control, a whole system level control, or it can also be used as a small supervisory control for a small building. But we basically have been using it in a lot of critical applications because of its power and its quad-core computing capabilities. And as you can see, basically any type of a building is a good fit for our portability device controllers. With this, I will now hand over to my colleague Richard, and he will take you further onto how we use Niagara and the Ajax1 controllers. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Chiro. Thanks to Tridium and Jacqueline and Danielle for the opportunity to present today, and I appreciate everyone's attendance. As Chiro said, we have taken on the path of the portability program for a couple of different reasons. One is to develop a generic Niagara controller that has wide-ranging capabilities. On top of that, though, we saw an opportunity to use the portability program to help Conservit develop to its strengths. And one of Conservit's strengths is that we are an application developer. So we develop specific applications around HVAC controls and optimization. And one of our areas of specialty is around chiller plant controls and optimization, as well as equipment and machine control. And so having the ability to tailor and customize the Niagara platform to our requirements was one of the central reasons that we decided to enter into the portability partnership program with Tridium. And we have a long history in developing chiller plant optimization using machine learning, airside optimization for air handlers and VAV systems, and developing a range of solutions for smart building platforms using the portability platform to enhance the applications in this market. And so using the portability program has really opened up a lot of opportunities for us to drive more value for our customers and in tailoring the Niagara platform for our needs. I'll quickly talk about a couple of those and we can move on to the next slide, Jacqueline. The first application that I'd just like to touch on is called Plant Pro. Plant Pro is a complete hardware and software solution that enables the really advanced optimization and control of your chiller plant. And we do this all in the device. And I'll talk about one of the key enabling technologies and reasons why, but one of the differentiators that using the portability platform and developing our own Niagara controller has given us is that our chiller plant optimization platform does not need cloud connectivity. All of the advanced machine modeling and machine learning that we do is all in the controller, and there's a really key reason why that's so, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But Plant Pro is the brains of your HVAC system and integrates with your BMS. Because we leverage the Niagara platform, it can integrate with the rest of the BAS or BMS, whilst it's also optimizing the chiller plant at the same time. So Plant Pro comes delivered on our CI Ajax1. The Ajax1, as Chiro said, is a quad core processor, running at a gigahertz with lots of RAM and lots of storage. And really, having such a powerful platform has enabled us to deliver dashboards and reporting and all of the things that go into a full optimization solution. And I think having them, we've had this Ajax1 in the market for a couple of years now, and it really has been the most powerful platform most powerful Niagara controller and platform on the market with those capabilities for quite some time. And so Plant Pro is installed globally. It's installed in all sorts of verticals. You saw some of the scenarios and verticals in Chiro's slide a couple of minutes ago, where it's installed. But having the portability program has enabled us to drive incredible value to our customers through our own device, through using a much more powerful computing platform right at the edge without needing cloud connectivity as well. If we move on to the next slide, you can see that it's a typical architecture. It looks exactly like an architecture you would see in a JS8000. Our EdgeX1 controller is, used to communicate with field I/O, to communicate with field devices like chillers and pumps and air handlers and valves. And at the same time, we can also communicate with with other I/O, the Vicon DEC I/O that we can be talking to air handlers and all sorts of equipment like that. So because we are such a powerful controller, we can be a complete BMS in a box or BAS in a box. And that's quite an advantage to driving value and lowering costs and lowering the labor as well for solution providers. So this is just a typical architecture. It's very standard, but I just wanted to show that our portability product, our CI EdgeX1, fits into exactly the same place in your typical system architecture as a JS8000 would at the same time, and providing larger capabilities due to the increased CPU, increased RAM, and increased capabilities, particularly, as Chiraya said, with the expanded number of RS-485 ports. We can provide up to 6 of those, so we can communicate to a lot of different devices. And I think that's another key differentiator as well. One of the other applications shown on the next slide is a specific machine control, and we've been very lucky to work with a partner of ours based up in Wisconsin in America, Multistack. They're a chiller manufacturer, and we have worked with them, I should say, to develop a chiller control solution, a machine control solution based on our CI EdgeX1 to control the actual machine using Niagara. And so they produce turbocore compressor-based machines. And our portability product, our CI EdgeX1, is factory fitted into the machine. And so that's an application that we've developed for that. And so we have a range of different configurations we support. We use our I/O products, and we've been able to tailor the framework specifically to enable that. And there's a couple of key points around, I've said this a couple of times, around tailoring the framework. And just quickly, because I think I'm just about to finish my point here, is there are some things that we couldn't do in a JACE that our own platform has allowed us to do. For example, the machine learning that we do, we've relied on a mathematical solution called interior point optimizers, and we found a C++ library that we were able to compile down into native code for the ARM processor. And this library was a software library for large-scale nonlinear optimization of continuous systems, and being written in C++, we were able to compile that down onto the ARM platform on our own platform and incorporate that into the Niagara framework to solve incredibly advanced machine learning problems. This was not available to us in a Java library that we would normally incorporate into a JS8000. So being able to do this was really great. Also, tailoring some of the history databases and the RS-485 communications has allowed us to offer a different range of solutions as well. So this is one of the key differentiators. We can tailor the Niagara platform to our applications, and our applications are HVAC optimization. I think the last thing we decide to talk about is our Sparkplug driver. As Troy mentioned, this is an MQTT driver. It is Sparkplug over MQTT, and I think that's a new thing that we're bringing to the Niagara market. And so that's coming with all these products. Last thing to mention just quickly is that, and I'd be remiss in my role as executive director, one of the executive directors of Project Haystack, is that we fully support all the Haystack tagging, and using the NHaystack open source module, our device can be just like a JS8000 and be a Haystack device, a Haystack compliant and tag device as well. So we fully fit that market at the same time. So thank you to everyone for allowing us to listen to our experience with the portability program. And Jacqueline, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Richard, and you, Chiraya, for presenting that. This is key. This is why we do portability, is because this demonstrates how you can use Niagara to solve more problems for people. So I will now move on, if the slides are moving, they are, and let's move on to Linkspring next. So we have Mark and Bob coming up next. I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Jacqueline. This is Mark Peacock. Thank you to Tridium. Special thanks to you, Jacqueline and Danielle, for organizing this and bringing us all together for this. We are delighted to present our Genesis Edge Niagara IP portfolio of controllers. Key here is portfolio, and I'll come back to that. Before we I continue on, I just want to wish all on the call today a happy HVAC Tech Day. In case you did not know, today is HVAC Tech Day. So happy wishes to all. Next slide, please, Jacqueline. So Linkspring has been a partner with Tridium for 20 plus years. In fact, we were one of the very first organizations to embrace Niagara and partner with Tridium. We go back to the days well before R2, for those of you on the call who remember the R2 days. And keeping with that first approach, we were the first partner to embrace the Niagara Portability program that Jacqueline has so well described. And a little bit about our journey. So back in 2015, we, Linkspring, as an organization, created an approach to market with the formation of what we call Edge to Enterprise. This is not only an approach to the marketplace, but also a corporate strategy that we follow in our business, our development, our creation. And then when we decided to embrace the portability program, we wanted to develop not just, as I mentioned earlier, one device. We approached this completely different as a series, a portfolio of Niagara-based devices that are IP and built utilizing the full stack of the Niagara framework. As part of our continuation thinking, we are embracing programmable control and integration, interoperability, and data access at all levels, whether it be the building itself, BAS, whether it be equipment, whether it be plant, unitary, and other types of devices. Our portfolio of controllers address this. All are programmed with Workbench, the Universal Niagara programming tool, utilize Fox, practice complete open NICs, support standard Niagara drivers, and have powerful processing built into it. Next slide, please. So 2017, a really banner year. That was the first year we released our Niagara ported solution. In fact, it was a Genesis Edge 534 IP controller. And at that time, we released it with both AX and N4. Obviously, the AX version of that particular controller has gone end of life with the end of life of AX. Again, it is fully Niagara supported with a full stack. Like the upcoming Jace 9000, we are embracing, our portfolio from the very beginning has embraced the Linux OS. Includes a modular hardware platform, multiple licensing options, and has all of our devices, which Robert will get into here in a few minutes after me, have built-in onboard I/O. And the first one, this 534, which was our first in our basic controller, has 34 I/O built in and can support up to 300 plus I/O. And again, like the newer controllers in the market, it contains a powerful chipset. Next slide. So I'm going to turn this over to Robert, who's going to get into this family of this portfolio, and he's going to start out with the 534 family. Robert?
Thanks, Mark. Again, thanks, Jacqueline. Thank you, Danielle, and everyone attending the call. My goal here is to just give you some basic information on our Edge product family and how it is intended to be applied in the marketplace and what applications it can be applied to. But basically, right here, this screen here is a small demonstration of the actual versatility of our Edge product line, which is Niagara or Tridium certified Niagara devices. The Edge 534, in this case, in the center is a basic model using Niagara and the licensing options that are available. Over to the left is an Edge 534, the same Edge 534 using a 4G modem. The Edge 534 on the right is happens to be an Edge 534 with a Monit transceiver so that that emulates a Monit gateway. So you can connect Monit wireless sensors directly to it. So that's just a sample of the diversity and versatility that we have with our Edge product line, using Edge 534 as an example. All right, the Edge 534 itself, as Mark was alluding to, really is our flagship Edge product. It was out there early on. It started with AX. It migrated into N4. We actually supported both at the same time at one point. There's been more 534s installed than any other Genesis Edge product, and we'll get into those later. However, those other products are quickly advancing on the volume of installed Edge 534s because they are more versatile even and smaller in its application. The physical aspects of a 534, if you don't know already, the 34 indicates the number of I/O inputs and outputs. It has 16 universal inputs, 10 digital outputs, and 8 analog outputs. It has the ports, communication ports available are RS-45. They can be BACnet MSTP, they can be Modbus, they can be other serial type networks, of which are supported by the standard Niagara drivers that are available. Okay, so this is fully Niagara. You can place the drivers that you're commonly used to in integrating other disparate systems with the Edge 534. As well, it has 2 Ethernet ports, of which we support BACnet IP and MSTP TCP or Modbus TCP, sorry, and other IP related networks, including Fox. On the very top, we also have a proprietary network similar to what Conservit was showing with their RS-45. It supports our Onyx devices. Now, one thing I want to point out, and just to leverage some of the things that Jacqueline was saying, as a Niagara platform partner, portability partner, we do provide our own Onyx or native platform code. In this case, it's called Onyx. All of our devices you see here are Onyx products. When we place Niagara on them, they suddenly turn into a Genesis Edge product. So I just want to point that out to you. One last thing to point out here is that one of the things I get asked, and this is amazing to me once in a while when I introduce this for the first time to someone who may be familiar with Niagara, however, and probably only familiar with JACEs and web supervisors. You go through the whole dissertation of what an Edge product is, and then at the end of the conversation, they say, well, where's the JACE? I'm here to tell you there's no JACE needed. However, it is interoperable with a JACE. It's interoperable with web supervisors, as well as its capability to operate standalone. It also can work within a bigger Niagara network. It can be a standalone IP controller, it can be a standalone serial controller. It can be a slave within a BACnet network. And it's available in a retrofit kit to replace existing J2, J3, J6 installations when you're using a wiring cable set that we have available. Next slide, please. Okay, moving on. We went from the 534, now we're at a 514. Absolutely the same exact product, except the number of I/O available to it. As you can tell here, a 34-point versus a 14-point controller. It has the same communication ports and capabilities. It has the same Niagara licensing and Niagara capabilities as the 534. It is just smaller. All right. So it is positioned for applications, strategic applications where you need a smaller footprint or less I/O. You might want to save a little money, so on and so forth. So that's the value proposition of 514. Moving forward to the next slide, please. Okay, starting to look similar, but the 414 varies differently from a 514 and especially from a 534. Same way as a 514, it has 14 points of I/O. However, it has the same communication capabilities, but it does represent itself with different Niagara licensing. It's the same Niagara, but we limit it to 3 devices, 50 points. And its intended applications are those terminal unit controllers, the larger volume assets within a building. You can see that it can integrate up to three devices, limited to 50 points. Its applicability, of course, is its small framework and its communication. It can communicate via serial, or it can communicate via IP. Something that's added here, and this is true for 514 as well, is that it's capable of communicating over a spanning tree protocol, so on and so forth. So next slide, please. All right. Now we're moving into a edge control or edge VAV controller. The edge VAV controller is pretty unique. It is using the same hardware framework as the 414 and the 514, except we've added integrated a pressure transducer. Pressure transducer in many ways is leveraged for our VAV application. However, if you wish to use this device in a different application that requires a pressure transducer, you could do so. Our VAV controller comes available to you with the featuring the ASRAY G36 sequence of operations. Those sequence of operations are soon being adopted by different consulting engineers and enterprise customers to have a standardized sequence of operation that they know exactly how that works. And then they leverage those sequences into their larger sustainability programs, and then also to access points and values into the enterprise. The VAV controller also comes available with different tool sets, configuration tool sets, commissioning tool sets, and balancing tool sets. So you don't have to, you could, but you don't have to operate within it in purely a Niagara experience. Even though it's all Niagara, same Niagara that's on the 534 is on the Edge VAV, right? Except we've put the VAV application. But using these tools that we've developed, you can quickly commission, balance, and integrate many of these Edge VAVs, including Edge 414s in an application using the Niagara framework. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so as you can see here, we've, and Mark alluded to before, E2E or Edge to Enterprise. And one thing we do want to also indicate to you that the Edge, Genesis Edge portfolio of products can be represented into a complete building automation system. And when you state in Edge to Enterprise, you can have web supervisory access, you can have terminal unit access, all leveraging the exact same Niagara, using the exact same Niagara tools that everyone's accustomed to. And best of all, the Niagara Edge platform is open. Anybody can access our Edge products and leverage it for their benefit. Okay, so new installations. Our Edge platform is suitable for new installations, obviously, retrofits, and a retrofit doesn't have to be a Niagara controller for an Edge controller. It could be a BACnet device for an Edge controller, right? And if it still needs to be BACnet, turn on BACnet. It's interoperability within itself and with other disparate systems, as you can see here, is still there no matter which Edge product you're using or leveraging. One thing I want to point out that I did not mention before, but the smaller Edge 414s right now, where they have the 50.3 device license, those licenses there's two value propositions there as well. One, the SMA is perpetual, right? So there's no expiration on the SMA, and they qualify as licenses that can be used by a web supervisor license schema that is a 10-to-1 ratio. So imagine traditionally you're integrating devices at a 1-to-1 ratio, and you can start adding up things in the web supervisor. And a 10-to-1, obviously, we can put 10 devices in the web supervisor, but it only acts as one for the license. All right. So a couple of things I want to also extend on here. One thing that's not mentioned is, again, when I mentioned that we put Niagara on an Onyx platform, if you don't put Niagara on Onyx platform, then we have I/O that is extendable from any one of these devices to give it more points, more hardware points, okay? And then coming soon, we have things like the Edge 434. Can you imagine a 534 license such as a 414, but with 34 points of hardware on it? XMs or Onyx XM14s, again, you're taking the idea of extending points, but in a smaller footprint. We are leveraging our E2E architecture to the extent that we have connectors will be enabled on the Edge devices, also a Jace device, and those connectors automatically find the easiest path to our E2E enterprise solution. Coming up is stay tuned for many different bundled solutions and factory services such as licensing, loading, and testing. One of the most difficult things for some of our partners can be commissioning a controller in a method that's repeatable over and over again. The factory generally sends out a basic framework of the Niagara offering, and then they have to commission it, upgrade it to the version that they want, load all their systems, their station. There's going to be services available that we can do that at the factory. And then finally, yes, we are looking at Niagara containerization. It is something that is very exciting. Is the Edge going to be compatible or be offered with it? Stay tuned. Obviously, we have to make that a consideration. But Linkspring is fast going into that realm as well, to supporting that in our greater Niagara offering. Okay, now we're at the last slide, Mark.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thanks, Robert.
Right,
Again, just what you guys see here is just a slide on what we call these edge-centric applications. Again, as part of the portfolio development, we are ongoing creating these applications that we make available to those who are utilizing the units in the portfolio in all different types of areas, from AHU to RTU, chillers, et cetera, et cetera. And they're designed purposely to get you around 80% of the way there. So it's just another group of tools that help enable you or enable the users to make use of these devices in an easy manner. Next slide, Jacqueline. And then to close out, to close this journey out of where we're at right now, besides some of the newer things that Robert alluded to that we're working on, as of now, there are well over 45,000 Genesis Edge devices that have been installed globally in all types of buildings, all sizes of buildings, and all types of equipment that's out there. As again, look at these controllers as not only for buildings and integration, building control and integration, but also utilizing and connecting into equipment direct. And if you're interested, we do have special partnerships available for those who are not a partner with Linkspring for our Edge portfolio. Would love to explain those to you further if you have an interest. Just reach out to me, mark.peacock@linkspring.com. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Jacqueline. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you very much. That's me unmuted again. So I notice we're pretty much getting through our time slot here today, but fortunately, the questions are few. So if anyone does have any questions that they want to follow up with, then by all means, you can either get in contact directly with Richard, Chiriu, Mark, or Bob from either of the organizations, or reach out to us. But I'll just run through now and I'll show you whereabouts you can find this information about this presentation that we've had and about portability. So if you want more information, you can go to the Tridium.com website, and under products, if you go to the Niagara framework section, you see Powered by Niagara. This has a whole section on what Powered by Niagara means and about how to get in touch with us if you want to power your devices with Niagara. But also on here, this is where we are working to get more recognition for our portability partners. And you would have seen at the last spotlight session that we had that we already uploaded Tiro and Isma Controlli. We've now uploaded Linkspring and Conservit's details onto there, and you've got URL click-through links here and to both their websites and data sheets, and we'll be adding in the other portability partners very soon. So if you want to play back this recording, share it with someone, or find out anything further about it, run back through some of the slides and see some of the details, then you can always go to services and support on the Tridium.com website, go to events, and that takes you to all of the different Tridium webinars and Tridium talks that we have. And there will be very quickly, actually, Danielle does this a great job with this, the recording of this session will be put up there. So let's see. I do believe there is one question that's come up into the Q&A session. So Richard, would you like to take this? This is from Ron Alexander. And what is the name of the VAV control standard that you mentioned?
Yeah, for sure. I think Bob should also have a chance to chip in here. It was actually probably reference to the VAV controller. So if Bob, if you want to unmute and chip in, but I believe Bob was referring to the ASHRAE guideline 36 standard that is being talked about quite a lot. And you know, recently at the Haystack Connect conference, you know, a lot of people were talking about ASHRAE guideline 36 being adopted across the industry. And I think we're seeing a lot more talk about this. I think this is the direction everyone's going. And I think it's a very interesting and important step forward to standardize a lot of the control routines. But, you know, Bob, do you want to talk specifically about your product?
Absolutely. Thanks, Richard. Our adaptation of the ASHRAE G36 sequences of operation was purposeful in the fact that when we want to build a VAV, and provide applications, we wanted to have a standard that we could point to, saying, because when people ask us, how do you do this? How do you do that? We're pointing at the standard that, at least in this case, ASHRAE has approved and is authored, and give us a little bit more credibility in what is actually being offered. That being said, customers, because it is a Niagara product, and in our case, it's all open, they could go in and modify our applications or create their own application as they need be. But In that case, we would not be able to support their application, just like any other Niagara programmable controller. But we're going with the G36 VAV sequences now because, as you're saying, there's adaptation to it is probably going to continue. Many folks are discussing it, and it's still early in its delivery to the marketplace.
I'd also just like to add there that from the Conservit perspective, our Plant Pro chiller plant optimization also aligns very closely with the ASHRAE guideline 36 from the chiller plant side of things. And so that's something, again, exactly as Bob's saying, we as product developers, we make conscious choices in all of these areas, and we've, like Linkspring, Conservit has chosen to reference and work very closely and align ourselves with the ASHRAE guideline 36 because we see it as something that the industry is going to be adopting. It will take time, as Bob alludes to, it's in its early days. But I think companies like Conservit and Linkspring that are starting out in this journey early, we will, be able to demonstrate to the market that it's a worthwhile place to be working.
With that, I think one of the other questions that we have in here in the Q&A that might be relevant is aimed at Linkspring, but where can we find more information about the ECAs, and are these standard apps compliant to ASHRAE guideline 32?
Mark, I'll try to answer this one. ECAs are available on our website, and we can send out a link to that. ECAs in themselves, if you understand the G36 specifications are limited in their application right now. They started with VAVs, and they also are starting to pull in air handlers and VAV air handlers and things like that. There are some applications we have in the ECAs that are not compliant with G36 simply because the G36 does not extend to them yet. They're going there, and it's a very active specification that ASHRAE continues to work on.
Great. Thank you. I will point out one of the other questions that we had in the Q&A, which Chiryu answered, and that was someone wanted to verify what programming tools are used with these partner controllers. Is it just Niagara Workbench or other tools as well? And just like any other OEM or branded version of Niagara or application that you have that's based on Niagara, you can either use the standard Niagara Workbench, or most organizations will also provide application-specific Niagara modules that you can use. Okay, if there's no other questions coming in right now, obviously, as I say, please feel free to contact either Conservit or Linkspring. I'd like to thank everyone who's joined into this call very much. It's been a very thorough and active presentation from both Conservit and Linkspring. So thank you very much, Richard, Mark, Bob, and Chiryu, who have all joined and presented today. And I think one of the things that you always see is if there are a few questions, it's because you've done such a thorough job of explaining what you do. And I think it certainly has added to everyone's knowledge as to what they can achieve with Niagara on a variety of different devices. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, and hope to speak with you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.